What's your frick this? I quit story. Started my first job at 15 as a dishwasher for a friend's family's new Korean restaurant. They were my neighbors. My typical workday was 4 PM to 9 PM on the clock. Afterwards I was expected to stay and help close shop, and instead of getting paid for those extra 3 hours I was given a meal for compensation. To be fair, there are laws prohibiting minors from working too long or too late, and honestly I didn't mind it as the food was incredible. After about a year I'm now 16, and due to the minimal wait staff I was expected to work as a waiter busboy in between dishes. Fair enough, I was getting sick of the same old anyways. So I came in during the week to start training, and since they knew I was already familiar with the menu and whatnot, I wasn't a shadow, I was just on my own and winging it. I made a mistake, that is not remembering soup or salad, so I went back upstairs to ask, and when I returned with my answer I was insulted by my manager for not taking this seriously enough. Alright. A couple months go by and I'm waiting tables and dishwashing, all while being micromanaged by my manager. Well, one weekend a Mardi Gras parade was being held downtown where the restaurant is located, so it'd easily be one of our busiest days that year. I was scheduled for 4 PM to 10 PM, but they asked if I'd come in that morning around 8 or so. About an hour or two into my new shift there was a mountain of dishes I was being expected to maintain while also waiting tables. My manager walks into the back where I am and the dialogue goes like this. "Leif, what are you doing? Washing dishes? Go ask table 6 if they need refills." "Yes, ma'am." I walk out the back and to the front of the store while she's tailgating me and pick up the pitcher of water. As I pick it up she asks, "Do you even know what you're doing?" At this point I'm pretty fed up and kindly respond with, "Yeah, I know how to pour water." She didn't like that and told me that I need to look at her with respect and that if I didn't like it here I should just leave. So I left them with mountains of dishes and thirsty customers. Know your worth. Working at a tech support call center, I put in for a day off for my birthday a month in advance. Boss forgot to process my request and said I couldn't get it off when I asked about it closer to the date, saying something about time off requests being locked due to upcoming trainings. Those trainings were 2 weeks after my birthday. I used to work at a bowling alley in the cafe kitchen when I was like 19. One particular night, I was the only one in the kitchen during a slammed rush. I get everything out, somehow, in a timely manner, clean the kitchen, then go it for a smoke. The GM walks out a minute later and proceeds to ream me, telling me I am a lazy no good piece of crap, etc. etc. I finish my smoke, go back in, pull off my uniform shirt and name tag, set it on the cafe counter and walk out the front door without a word. Frick you, Paul. I interviewed for a corporate accounting role because public accounting was much less pay and a lot more hours. Was told in the interview that it was show up between 8-9, leave between 4-5. There'd be no more working late nights or having to work on weekends, which was great. I took the job and within 2 months realized they were lying through their teeth. First off, there was absolutely no training on their processes. I was given enough work for 3 people, with no direction on how to do it. My manager was so scatterbrained, he could never give me any help when I asked. No one talked for 8 hours a day, and it was just an unbelievably bad work culture. I'd get to work usually at 8:30, and leave at 4:30 while eating lunch at my desk. I came in one day and was told, "Since you're leaving so early, I can only hope you're working from home." Then the next week, we're told we have to come in for a full day Saturday because we had New Year's Day off that Monday. My final straw was when I left at 2:30 one day for a doctor's appointment. When I came in the next day, my manager pulled me into a room and said that I didn't have enough accrued PTO to do that, and he was going to dock my pay in a salaried position. Went in the next day, told him it wasn't working out and put my 2 weeks in. On my last day, he told me I could leave at 11:30, so I did. When I got my final paycheck, he docked my pay for the remainder of that day. Luckily, the recruiter who got me the job followed up to ask what happened, and I was completely open and honest with her. Apparently, that manager has a very high turnover rate for the position I was in, and the recruiter told me that the CFO is looking into replacing him. I'm sure the CFO looked into it, then his wife said he couldn't fire her brother and so he got promoted instead. I was in the same position for 2 years and was actively looking at other positions within the same company. The bosses knew about it. It was just time for a change and to advance my career. Great opportunity came up and I was offered the position. However, my current leadership blocked me because I received a promotion 6 months prior. That promotion was literally an automatic email that said congrats, you're now level 2 instead of level 1 because I had met my sales attainment and completed all my yearly trainings. Literally an automated email stopped me from getting promoted and bosses said I had to wait another 18 months. Left that company and went to a competitor doing the same thing for better pay and significantly more support. I had a similar situation. My then boss told me they were trying to work on it so that I could interview in the other department I wanted to go in. Later I found out that they were doing nothing since they wanted to keep me. Decided that was the last straw with the other BS going on and put in my 2 weeks. My boss had my crew and I cut corners on a job. I was fairly new to the position and took what he said as the way it was supposed to get done. Inspectors then came and checked the job because of an unrelated screw up by another company and in turn found out what we had done. Boss then blamed the whole thing on me and denied he ever told me to do it. It was done. Spent the next 2 days replacing all previous work to the way it should have been. Boss then told me that he was not going to pay me for the days of work, 14 hours each day, because I was fixing my frick ups. All the while during the 2 days getting called a fricking idiot and a liar. Frick you. I quit. Short story. Boss tried to cut corners, got caught, blamed it on me, then refused to pay me to fix it to try and recoup some of the losses he took. I quit. In the US, wage theft not to pay you for hours worked, and is a criminal, not a civil violation, I think. I was a new Sous chef at a country club. Chef wouldn't let anyone but himself do the ordering. His ordering method was to go over a sheet of paper hanging on the line where people wrote down what we were out of, not what we were nearly out of, but what we were completely out of. Anytime I'd try to add items that we were close to out of on, he'd lose his crap. We were constantly out of things. One day, we had a huge Easter breakfast event. Dumb head chef didn't order near enough eggs and we were out of all sorts of other random items. I was out front making omelets for members, ran out of eggs and stood around for 15 minutes waiting for more while the members became increasingly frustrated then angry. Went to the back to see chef yucking it up with the floor manager. Handed him my apron and told him to pound sand. Was at that job for less than 2 weeks. But we're out of sand. Waitressing at a small cafe. Owner was also the manager cook. One day, we were in the weeds, getting thrown around left and right, and finally when it slows down, the other line cook messed up. So the owner, who already had several screaming meltdowns, picks up a plate and throws it right at the server alley. It broke on the wall near my head. So I took off my apron and waddled my pregnant butt on home. Frick that. It closed a few weeks ago, which wasn't surprising. Arrived at the bar to work my shift only to discover that the owners had sacked my manager because there was, in their view, too much wastage. At the time, he was recovering from major surgery on his arm. He had 3 young children and an 8 months pregnant wife. They thought they were losing money because not every drop of beer poured went into somebody's drink, which is just a fact of life in a bar, and not because their idle Torag son-brother, father-son owner duo, kept coming in with his mates and demanding we give them drinks they didn't have to pay for. Quit on the spot, went to the manager's son's christening a while later. A year or 2 after that was told the bailiffs had come to visit the bar and left with quite a lot of furniture. Couldn't have happened to bigger C. Let me guess, the owners had never worked in a bar before and it was something they did on the side. I proved to the CIO, using math, that the help desk could not lower its abandon rate to an acceptable point without hiring more people. She responded by telling me that my team just didn't have enough discipline and then I got written up. I quit the next day and told my team they will replace me with a manager whom the CIO will let hire more people. I was right. Was volunteering at a local charity shop at the weekend. As it turns out, most of the non-paid volunteers were conscripted from job seekers or community service or whatever. They had to turn up to get their welfare payments, etc. Anyway, I'd been there about 6 months. Was hard graft at times moving sofas round the shop. up and down 3 floors. It was a nice sunny day and I was taking my lunch break out the back sitting on a sofa at the loading bay doors in view of a public car park, eating a sandwich with my feet up on the railing. All of a sudden some woman who I've never seen before starts waggling her finger at me like I'm a naughty kid, then shouting at me in a disgusting tone, "Get up, young man, how dare you." She kept ranting on. I'm like, who the heck is this? She get confrict. Slowly I get up and move inside. Turns out she was the area manager. She pee me off so bad. I didn't really have an issue with what she was asking. It possibly didn't give a good impression. It was the way she was speaking to me I had a problem with. I think she thought I was the typical conscript who could be abused without recourse, as they had to stay there and take the abuse in order to get their payments. Some customers in the shop heard how she spoke to me and they backed me up, so I knew I wasn't nuts. Told her she could stick my volunteering and I got the heck out of there. Never went back. Made me think, why should I give up my free time to help this bee on a fat salary hit her targets? I doubt she had a charitable bone in her body. I wrote a 2-page letter of complaint to the head office but never did send it. Kind of regret that. Many years ago I worked at a place called Atomic Burrito. I only worked there for 4 days. I was washing dishes and the manager walked by and started yelling at me for using soap. He said soap cost money and we were just putting the same food back in the pans anyways. I quit right there. Nope, the frick right out the door. My wife has one. Her boss suddenly became obsessed with bringing in as many new people as possible. Oddly, he seemed to forget about retaining his current workers. Many, like my wife, were very experienced at this point. You would think that they'd be considered the most valuable employees of the group. My wife had settled into a nice MF schedule, with good hours, 10-5. Suddenly, her boss pulls her in for a meeting and says most of the new employees can't work nights or weekends due to personal conflicts. I'll need you to switch to a 1-9 schedule and work Saturdays. My wife was caught off guard and responded, when you hired me, I told you that I had conflicts in the evenings and weekends, and that I would be able to work within that schedule. The boss got all serious and said, listen, I think I've been more than generous and accommodating of your schedule needs. I think it's time for you to show us some of that same flexibility. My wife started crying immediately and stormed back to her desk. She called me and said that she thought she needed to quit, but wanted to make sure she wasn't crazy. After listening to what happened, I said that boss could go to heck and she should never look back. She took her free water bottle and never returned. I was at my dream job building high performance Corvettes. There were a lot of downsides, not W2, no benefits, long hours, you break it you buy it. Then they introduced a efficiency measurement, where if you were not fast enough you had to work Saturday to make up for it. Measuring efficiency in custom work leads to corner cutting, and in general is impossible, as it's custom. Then I had to push the shop owner's car in to fit some things. It took me 2 hours to wrap up the car I was working on, push it out, move 2 other cars, get the forklift started, and get the car in. It didn't have a motor yet. All not chargeable, all not my fault, all supposed to be made up on Saturday. I quit the next day. I worked for a company for over a year that was contracted to make deliveries for Amazon. The vans they equipped us with were terribly maintained and fully unequipped to handle winter weather. I worked with the company through their first winter, which meant sliding all over the road when it was icy and getting stuck constantly every time we had snow. I never had a major accident, though I did have 2 or 3 close calls where only minor damage was incurred to the van. I decided to stick it out through the summer, when the weather was obviously much better. All summer long they promised us that new and better vans were coming. September rolls around, no vans. October, no vans. November, no vans. That month we got our first real snow. I got back from my route and immediately put in my notice. My boss told me they would be getting new vans by the end of the year. I told her that was nice and walked. First job, working at a little barbecue place with a drive-thru. My day off. Manager calls me at 8:30 am, 30 minutes before we open, saying she doesn't feel good and needs me to open. I rush in and end up working all day. 5 PM rolls around. Manager comes in with the owner of the business, who she's dating. They were at the fair all day and completely forgot they lied to me about her being sick. I bite my tongue and ask if I can go home. They say no and keep me until close 9 PM. At 9 PM I took my shirt off, handed them my keys, and said today was my last day as I walked out the door shirtless. Best part, when I got home my dad was peeved that I quit my job. I told him what they did and said I wasn't making enough money. He looked at my pay stubs and saw they hadn't been paying me overtime the entire time I worked there. He made me go back and demand my overtime pay. When I came in with the pay stubs, the manager started crying and gave me cash out of the register to cover my overtime and then some. They called me the next day making sure I wasn't going to report them to the BBB. I didn't, but my dad did. The BBB is Yelp for old people. Should have gone to your state's labor board. I was 20 and had been working in a call center for just over a year. I was promoted to an assistant manager with a new compensation structure that was identical to the other assistant manager. Basically you got your wage, a very small percent of the total office revenue, and then 10% of your own revenue from when you worked on the phone. My immediate manager and office supervisor gave me this without confirming it with the regional manager who was on a 2-month vacation and the doctor. When I got my first check after being promoted there was no bonus. I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my second check after being promoted there was no bonus. I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my third check after being promoted there was no bonus and I was told we had to wait for the regional manager to come back and authorize it. I was being paid weekly and worked another 4 weeks under the premise that I would get a lump sum when the regional manager returned. The problem was that I sold significantly more than the other office manager. The back pay had grown to such a large amount that when the regional manager did return he questioned why the office manager had given me this structure as he considered it to be too much money. On my next check there was no lump sum and I was told that they were figuring out a new structure. My following shift I stayed home and got a frantic call from the office manager asking me why I wasn't at work. I told him I couldn't afford to go to work. He said, "Why can't you afford it?" "Because I have been getting ripped off for 2 months. Call me back when you have my money or don't call me at all." Never did get paid. I had a manager who just didn't like me. I don't know why. It happens. But she couldn't keep it professional and acted as if every mistake I made, I had made on purpose, just to frick with her. Meanwhile everyone else told me that they were super happy with me and I was a great worker. So she had worked that Saturday. And when I turned on my PC that Monday morning I had about 10 emails from her, all with screenshots and rude remarks like, "Why is it so hard for you to follow the rules and how did you not know this?" While she was the one that trained me. Frick that crap. I'm worth way more than that. Had my annual review after finishing my first year at a retail store and I got a 13-cent per hour raise. A coworker of mine who drunkenly broken into the laundromat grocery store in town to steal beer a few weeks prior got a 14-cent per hour raise, and new employees were making 12 cents more to start than I was 1 year in. Frick this. I quit and frick you, Under Armour. I had a job that had mandatory raises every year. The first time yearly raises came through, new company, I started with them prior to the first annual raise. They gave everyone a 1 cent an hour raise. That's it. Was at a job for 3 years, consistently in the top 3 of my department in terms of performance. Asked my supervisor repeatedly if I could be recommended for advancement promotion and he always told me he was trying his best to get me new opportunities. Found out from a friend in a different department that I'd been considered a top candidate for 4 different promotions and each time my supervisor had blocked it. When I confronted him with this information he told me it was true and he did it because I could never find someone who does what you do without paying them a lot more. Internally said, frick this. I quit and found a new job within 3 months. Took all my PTO and on the day I came back I quit 2 hours into the day, leaving him high and dry at a peak time. Frick that dude. I could never find someone who does what you do without paying them a lot more. LOL that they actually said that. What a dirtbag. He's basically saying, yeah, I'm screwing you, yeah, frick that dude. I worked for Dollar General for 94 days as a store manager. It was explained to me that it was a 5/1/2 day work week, and if I was fully staffed I could end up making it a normal 5-day work week. The only problem is I fixed my store. Processes were broken when I arrived. Then they asked me to help set up a store. Well, wasn't really asked. I helped with the new store setup, and since they didn't have a store manager lined up, I was told I had to run it on top of my normal store. I was then tapped to do another store setup and run a third store. I was working 90 hours a week going between 3 stores, would open one up, go check on another and close the third because they were all understaffed. 4 days off total in 94 days. I was then sent out of state for a week for training, while still having to run 3 stores from my phone. All through this I ended up interviewing with a competitor, got the job, and when I got back from training I sent my DM a letter of resignation. My new job is great. I have a small store that is easy to manage, get 2 days off a week. Been there 3 months and already have 2 weeks of vacation. I ended up taking a small hit on salary, but it was worth it. Moral of the story: don't work for DG, it sucks. You have been spotted by the rare flying floofer. If you comment good boy below, he don't steal your hot dogs anymore. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.